What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today let's get started with UFC 310 ticket sales are horrible. From the sounds of things, the ticket sales for UFC 310 aren't going very well. After Belal Muhammad's withdrawal and the UFC booking a fight between Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Garry for the new co-main event, the promotion is now apparently slashing ticket prices across the board. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. According to Fight Opinion, tickets originally priced at $1,200 are now being marked down to $1,000, and tickets that were originally priced at $1,000 are now being marked down to $750. An update on UFC 310 ticket sales for T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. They're really bad. Markdowns are already happening. $1,200 seats down to $1,000. $1,000 seats down to $750. Even with papering, this could get really ugly. The erosion of the Vegas market for UFC is a big story. TSN reporter Aaron Bronstetter weighed in on the situation, wondering if something else was going on that was driving up hotel prices. There must be something else going on in Vegas that week, as hotel prices are absurd, which certainly doesn't help bring people in from out of state. He then followed it up explaining, "I haven't even looked at ticket sales to be honest, just noticed that when we booked hotels for that week, that prices were absolutely off the charts expensive. It's like $400 a night for Excalibur, which is like 8 times the going rate." As Fight fans pointed out, there's an Amazon Web Service conference scheduled for December 2nd through the 6th, as well as the National Finals Rodeo from the 5th to the 14th of December. The visual graphic of the arena shows pretty much blue across the board, indicating plenty of available tickets. In the meantime, Shavkat Rakhmonov was seen in a video getting some work in with Nasruddin Imavov as he prepares for his fight with Ian Garry. Daniel Cormier fires back at Bo Nickals' comments. Bo Nickal might have gotten the biggest win of his career over a gritty veteran Paul Craig over the weekend, but the victory wasn't as dominant as some had hoped for. During the broadcast, Daniel Cormier said that based on what he was seeing, Nickal still had a ways to go before being on Khamzat Chimaev's level, leaving Nickal kind of frustrated considering the people he trusts for honest feedback all praised the win. During an all-new episode of his 3-round show, Cormier responded to Nickals' comments from earlier in the week, saying that he thinks Nickal is going to be a UFC champion someday, and he thought the performance was a good one, even though he maintains there's still room for improvement.
This one kind of took me a little bit by surprise because I do like Bo, and I do believe that at some point he's going to be a champion. I think that he's a respectful guy, so he's trying to say things in the nicest way that he possibly can, but I think he may have misunderstood what I'm trying to say. What I was more trying to say in this fight is let's not rush him into fights with people that are much more experienced. That is how good he has done in that short period of time.
When reporter Damian Riley responded to DC and Nickal and asked why the NCAA legend didn't wrestle against Craig, he responded by saying, "I was winning the striking and I was happy to get experience in the cage doing something I've never done before. My only small regret is not being more aggressive in the 3rd round after I hurt him. I need to build a better system to attack when my opponent is hurt." While some criticized the fight and Israel Adesanya called it boring, Dana White echoed a similar sentiment as DC, saying that Nickal might have won all 3 rounds, but he still has some work to do. Given that he's only been fighting for a few years, it sounds like the UFC has no problem taking things slow. Alex Volkanovski gives an update and confirms his next fight will be for the title. He also shuts down rumors of a potential fight against Diego Lopez. Here's what Volk had to say.
We don't know exactly what's going on just yet. Obviously, we're fighting for the title. When is that going to be? That's sort of the question. So let's see if we can get a stadium in Spain. Obviously, that's an option. Could Sydney still be an option? If so, I'll stay fit, making sure that, because I'll be getting close to camp now anyway, if we do make Sydney. So I'll just get stuck into training and we'll see what happens. But nothing locked in yet, but yeah, we'll see.
So everyone's saying these fights locked in and everything.
Oh, with we're seeing the Lopez.
Yeah.
I don't know where that sort of come from. I think that was just, I think the fact that he's obviously said let's do it in Sydney, and then I think people just ran with that. But there's no talks of that at all. But you never know, right? But yeah, obviously we're fighting for the title, so that's where we're going to mainly focus. But we'll see what happens. But there's definitely nothing like that locked in.
UFC Fight Updates. Ahead of this weekend's Fight Night card in Macau, let's take a look at today's UFC Fight Updates, starting with a new date for the Chris Weidman-Eric Anders fight that was pulled from the UFC 309 card at the last minute last weekend. Given the rescheduled date, the pair are going to be fighting at a catch weight of 195 instead of the usual middleweight limit of 185 pounds. The last time Weidman fought, he picked up a controversial victory after eye-poking Bruno Silva several times. On the other side, Anders will look to build on a win over Jamie Pickett back in March. The Weidman-Anders fight being added to the UFC 310 card couldn't have come at a better time, with the Talison Teixeira and Lucas Brzezinski fight being called off due to an injury to Teixeira. We've also got a new addition to the Saudi Arabia card on February 1st. Shamil Gaziev and Thomas Peterson are set to throw down in a heavyweight bout on that card. Gaziev is coming off a win over Dontel Mays in August, after a loss to Biji Boy to start the year, while Peterson is coming off a win over Muhammad Usman in July. Last but certainly not least, Juliana Miller and Carly Giudice are set to throw down on the UFC Vegas 102 card on February 15th, with Miller looking to make a triumphant return to the octagon after losing 2 straight in 2023. On the flip side, Giudice will try to snap a 2-fight skid. Vicente Luque reacts to Nick Diaz video. Vicente Luque's rescheduled fight with Nick Diaz was called off again this week after a video went viral of a shirtless Diaz lighting a fire. Along with the video, Diaz's longtime girlfriend posted on her Instagram story, writing that addiction doesn't last forever. You either find sobriety or the addiction takes your life. On top of that, she even tagged Diaz, making it clear that the fan favorite is going through some tough times. In an interview with MMA Fighting this week, Vicente Luque reacted to his fight with Diaz being scrapped for the second time, saying that, more than anything, he just hopes that Diaz is doing okay. I don't know exactly why it was canceled. I saw that video of him in the streets and he didn't look okay, and more than anything, I hope his family and he's taking care of himself. I hope he recovers and goes back to his best state possible. When I saw the video, first, I didn't know if it was a recent video or not, but I kept thinking, if it's recent, I hope he really seeks help to get out of the situation he's in, because Nick is a fighter I follow since before I was in the UFC. He has inspired me a lot in the past. About 6 months ago, fans were alerted that Diaz may be going through some things behind the scenes when MMA veteran Joe Riggs, who fought Diaz years back, spoke about the rebooked Diaz-Luque fight on Tim Welsh's YouTube channel, hinting that Diaz was dealing with addiction. Given that and the latest cancellation of the Diaz-Luque fight, it sounds like the MMA legend needs fan support. Justin Gaethje and Diego Lopez were seen hitting the UFC punching machine trying to beat each other's scores. Here's the clip. Four Dana White Contenders fighters suspended for PEDs. After an action-packed season of Dana White's Contender Series that saw the promotion sign more fighters than ever before, the Nevada State Athletic Commission has now decided to suspend 4 fighters, all for failing drug tests during the last season of the show. According to MMA Junkie, the commission suspended Abdallah Rami, Quamel Otoni, Francesco Mazzeo, and Michael Imperador for failed drug tests. Rami, Mazzeo, and Imperador all lost their Contender Series fights, while Otoni decided to pull out of his fight right before he was set to walk out. Rami tested positive for drostanolone, the same drug Anderson Silva popped for after his fight with Nick Diaz, while Mazzeo popped for a substance known as GW1516. Meanwhile, Otoni popped for clomiphene, which Brock Lesnar, John Jones, and Chael Sonnen have all tested positive for in the past. And last but not least, Imperator popped for stanozolol, which Walt Harris notably tested positive for back in 2023. So far, no word yet on how long the commission plans on suspending any of the fighters, but in the meantime, they've all been hit with temporary suspensions until the next Nevada State Athletic Commission monthly meeting on December 17th. Michael Chandler reveals sad news on health after UFC 309. Michael Chandler went 5 full rounds with Charles Oliveira this past weekend in New York City, and from the sounds of things, Iron Mike is paying for it now. During an appearance on Bussin' with the Boys after Saturday's card, Chandler said he's been experiencing the worst pain of his life ever since the two threw down inside the octagon at MSG. On top of that, Chandler said he's also dealing with more injuries than he's ever had following a fight.
had a phenomenal training camp. We went to war. We did our thing. Body, the most pain I've ever been in my entire life. Like the most injuries I've ever had in a fight for sure.
Yeah.
You know, ped blood, inflammation all over. My whole body's swollen. The first one was very light, which was in my drug test. Because New York drug tested me before the fight and then after the fight.
Just in case.
Test positive.
Yeah. I tested positive for blood.
Chandler also spoke about his future following the loss. Even though he had his sights set on fighting for the title in 2025, Chandler's now pivoting and has his sights set on a rematch with Justin Gaethje or a fight with Max Holloway for the BMF belt if Conor McGregor isn't ready to return to action. Max Holloway for the BMF belt. You know, I don't know what my ranking is now, probably still 7-ish or whatever. He's number 5 because he beat Gaethje, you know? So like you got 2 guys inside the top 10, BMF belt, 155, Chandler versus Gaethje, 2, that's a big fight, you know? That's another banger. So far, no word on when Chandler will be medically cleared to return to the octagon. However, Max Holloway is targeting a return to action this summer after losing to Ilia Topuria. Depending on how long Chandler's out, a fight between the two or a rematch between Chandler and Gaethje would likely be huge hits with fight fans.